Good afternoon. Welcome to a look at the weekend review of the Premier League action for Week 6. What a fantastic weekend of football. Spectacular stuff. In line with the new format, we're going to be looking at 5 major talking points. Those major talking points this week are: number 1, Manchester United, their performance against Leicester. City against Chelsea. Quick look back at the game. Mesut Ozil's performance in the Arsenal game. The shock results of the weekend, notwithstanding the Manchester United result, and Liverpool's performance against West Ham as well. So if we begin with Manchester United's 5-3 loss at Leicester City today, a frankly outrageous scoreline. In terms of the game, Man United 3-1 up into the second half. They had at this point, Evans had gone off injured at this point, to be replaced by Chris Smalling, so they'd have a bit of a suspect defence. But for a seemingly unassailable 3-1 lead to then concede 4 goals without reply for a club of Manchester United's stature is not something I can remember happening at Manchester United. And it really does suggest a lack of leadership, a lack of composure, and a lack of competence as well. The players that scored for Leicester City, with all due respect, have only really proved themselves in the Championship. So for them to be able to score almost at will against Manchester United does suggest that defensively they have a lot of work to do. We knew that going into the season, we knew that during the transfer window, and we knew that post all the attacking players that Manchester United signed, that they had a lot of work to do defensively. That's still the case. I'm surprised that Van Gaal, having shouted his mouth off pre-game about being very aware of Leicester City, all their different facets, what they were good at, what they were not good at, etc., chose to go quite so attacking against them. And when Evans had gone off, chose to continue making attacking substitutions, bringing on Mata, for example, who was culpable for one of the goals. So, although the players are undeniably to blame, I think Van Gaal tactically perhaps got it wrong today. And all the enthusiasm and momentum that they got from their winning against QPR is now gone again. So, a bad day for Manchester United, a great day for Leicester. Hats off to them, obviously. Cambiasso fitting in nicely. And again, they continue to impress. Looking at the game that has just passed, Manchester City's 1-1 draw with Chelsea. An intriguing battle. A lot of yellow cards, quite a tetchy game for large spells. Manchester City, undeniably the more positive team, attacked a lot more. Probably should have had a penalty with Costa, clumsily putting in a challenge on Dzeko, I think it was, in the first half. And I think bringing it to Schürrle, again, such a good option off the bench. His movement is fantastic. And with the goal, which was reminiscent of Chelsea last season when they did a number of Man City with a counter-attack. Very quick counter-attack. 1 2-touch passes. Hazard playing a great ball across for Schürrle to knock it home. Schürrle then losing his man, as he did against Swansea, in which some have speculated was the reason why he didn't start today's game. Lost his man, Milner, who had a great game, I thought. Crossed the ball for Super Frank Lampard to knock home against his old club. Sort of written in the stars moment that, and Lampard could have gone on to win the game later on. An interesting tactical battle. I think City very much had last season's game in mind, because whenever Chelsea looked like they might counter-attack, City were quickly in there to foul them. And it wasn't particularly surprising that City had a player sent off later in the game. What was surprising was the spirit and the manner in which they came back from going 1 goal down. They actually looked more likely to win when the game was at 1-1, which was quite surprising. But Chelsea will take the 1-1 draw all day long. Puts them in a comfortable position going forward. Another potentially concerning thing for City will be that when Aguero doesn't play well, they may struggle to score goals if Yaya Toure continues his current drought. Moving on to the third talking point of the weekend, that was Mesut Ozil's performance in Arsenal's comfortable win against Aston Villa. Of course, Aston Villa had some sort of sickness bug which affected the whole team. Nathan Baker was out; he's been magnificent recently, and that undeniably did affect them. Arsenal, though, looked very good, and Ozil was played in the number 10 position, just in behind Danny Welbeck, and those two combined superbly for the opening 2 goals. Welbeck slipping in, Ozil, who kept his cool, slid it home, and Ozil drifting out to the left to cross for Welbeck for the second goal. When Ozil was at Real Madrid, he was seen as one of the best number 10s in the world, and I think the stat was that he had more assists than anyone else in the last 5 years of European football. Now, why Wenger would insist on playing him in the left wing, where he would have defensive duties, and which he clearly is not set up to do. He's not going to track back. He's a very slight player, technically magnificent, who will thrive in the role behind the striker. Now, Wenger stated in the newspaper today. Excuse me, I'll just have a quick look here. It's in the Observer. Wenger's quoted as saying, in regards to Ozil, he prefers to play in the middle and he responded very well. But it's not always easy to strike the right balance. I can find you 10 other players in my squad who want to play the same role. I don't think that's really the point. I mean, if you paid 42 million for a number 10, play him in the number 10 role. You can play there for Germany because the German setup is completely different and that midfield is very fluid. But in the Premier League, it's a completely different competition to international football. You need to play him in the number 10 role, otherwise he's going to suffer out wide, where his talents are ultimately wasted. So good to see Ozil back in his preferred position. He was excellent, of course. And a depleted Aston Villa squad won't be the biggest test of him this season, but a good sign nonetheless. Moving on to the fourth talking point. I was originally going to focus on the Alan Pardew soap opera, but given the Newcastle battle back, I think he'll still be there for a little bit to come. So what I was instead going to focus on was the shock results from this season. Today's games, and yesterday's games. First of all, Swansea 0, Southampton 1. Southampton continue to defy the naysayers, and I was one of them at the beginning of the season. I'm sure a lot of you were, who thought Southampton would struggle. Koeman doing a great job there. Of course, they were helped by Wilfried Boney's stupid sending off, but they look very solid defensively. The signings have all bedded in extremely well. Wanyama came back in yesterday and took his goal very well. So things looking good for Southampton. Swansea, maybe a bit of a reality check. Everton losing 3-2 at home to Crystal Palace. The same result that ended Everton's Champions League hopes last season. Pretty shocking result this, given that Palace were poor last week and Everton are usually really good at home. So perhaps a bit of a Europa League hangover for the Toffees. Spurs losing 1-0 at home to West Brom. Again, there's a Europa League hangover issue, but Spurs have a strong enough squad and West Brom are that bad that, to me, that is an absolutely appalling result for Pochettino. And I think that will be particularly alarming for him and for the hierarchy who thought that Spurs would maybe have some consistency this season and be able to deal with Europa League games. Finally, last talking point is Liverpool's continued struggle. They lost 3-1 to a very good West Ham team. They're playing some excellent football going forward, which is something that is rarely said of a Sam Allardyce team. Excuse me. But West Ham actually did to Liverpool what Liverpool did to a lot of teams last season. They were very solid defensively. Well, not solid in terms of Liverpool weren't solid defensively last season, but West Ham were excellent on the counter-attack. If the two players sitting there in Song and Kouyate, and then you had Noble and Downing buzzing around. Liverpool really shoddy. Steven Gerrard again proving that he's not a defensive midfielder. Lucas looks completely off the pace. They needed to address that problem in the transfer window and they didn't. They miss Suarez. Sterling presents a danger, but generally I think Liverpool are pretty poor at the moment, and Brendan Rodgers has got a lot to be concerned about. But no, West Ham very, very impressive again, and it's an interesting set. We'll see how they get on this season. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the football as much as I did this weekend, and I shall see you next week. Bye bye.